Welcome back. Well, returning to the day's top story now. A 4-year-old child in New South Wales will be undergoing gender transition before their first day of preschool. The state government's report comes as new data shows a steep climb in the number of children with gender dysphoria.
So let's bring in Nine's Ben Fordham and Shelly Horton to discuss this. Fordo, psychologists have questioned whether the child is too young for transition. But what are your thoughts?
Look, I know that we're here to give our opinions on things, but I'd just like to clearly state when I know something about something and when I don't know a hell of a lot about it. And I'm in the second category on this, and I just don't want to be someone who's giving advice to a family who've got something going on under their roof that I clearly don't understand, and I'm not going to be able to comprehend to the extent that they do. I just feel sorry for anyone who's growing up with identity issues at all, let alone a kid.
Well, let me put it this way as a parent then, like, because we're both parents of kids. If my kid came to me at 4, 5 or 6 said, "Dad, I don't feel like myself. I feel like I'm in the wrong body." What do we do?
Totally. I mean, the last thing I would be doing in that situation is saying to my little boy, no, mate, you're a man, you're a boy, forget about it, here's a footy, don't worry about it, just keep doing your thing. I admire parents who support their kids through this whole thing. I don't understand it. I'm probably never going to understand it until you live something like that yourself. But I just feel for them. I really feel for them, and I suppose this is a reality of where we are these days, that there are more options available to kids who find themselves trapped in the wrong body.
Yeah. Shelly, I thought it was a very welcoming sign to see the Department of Education really supportive and accommodating for this particular child. What are your thoughts?
I think that it's kind of a headline to say they're undergoing gender transition at 4 years old. No, I think it's that they're starting to openly discuss it with a counsellor, which is, to me, such a positive step. I think that when we look at the suicide rates of transgender in our society, it's still 41%. So a lot of parents, they've got to realise that if they fight this, they may not have their child anymore. So I think the fact that we have rates of children wanting to explore this, I think they said it was up 250% or something. Positive. This is not like diabetes going up. This is not an illness. This is something that finally our society is open and finally accepting and willing to speak about. So this is actually a really positive thing.
Can I play devil's advocate for a sec? There'd be people watching this suggesting that this is a load of nonsense, that kids at the age of 4 always experiment and dress up as the opposite gender and play around, and it's almost a rite of passage for a child. What would you say to them?
I think that, as you know, I'm not a parent, but I know with my nephews there's a difference between playing dress up and being unhappy with the body that you're in, and that's causing you mental distress. So I think that for us to think that it's just a bit of a phase, these people are actually seeing psychologists, they're actually seeing experts, so therefore I think they're going to be treated very respectfully. And if it is a phase, that's fine. You know, like I don't want to also then go, well, you've now had some psychology and treatment about, you know, your gender, therefore you can't change your mind. I don't know what it's like.
But is there a risk of something being perpetuated that doesn't exist?
Well, part of my mind has that going on in it as well, Georgie, but that's why I prefaced it by saying I'm not going to pretend to understand what's going on inside this child's head or inside this family's home. And I think that part of the confusion here at the moment is because there's also this safe schools thing that's going on at the moment as well, which no doubt has got some decent elements to it, but there are some elements to that program in being introduced to some schools that has quite rightly got a lot of parents worried. And because it was done by stealth, because a lot of these schools introduced it without consulting the parents, I think parents kind of go, well, hang on a moment, if you're going to be teaching our children that they are gender fluid, I would like to know about it before you discuss that with my child. I don't think they're teaching that
you are gender fluid. They're saying that there are some people who are. Well, and I think that's about being open-minded.
I think you need to have a look at the Safe Schools program before you, because they are teaching. They're saying there's no, forget about him and her. Stop saying him and her. You're gender fluid. We need unisex toilets throughout classrooms. These are academics who are out of touch with the real world. But there's a difference between that, and I do have concerns about that being taught to kids without consultation with parents, and a very serious medical situation that a child finds themselves in where they are a boy but really they've got the body of a girl. How can I pretend to understand what that's like?
I have a friend who's gone through gender realignment, and she said that she knew at age 4 or 5, but she didn't have the surgery until she was in her 20s.
Sure.
So, you know, it doesn't mean that if you know at that age that anything drastic will happen until you've had all of the psychological
Right,
assistance.
Let's move on, because there's a few other topics we want to talk about, but please go onto Facebook and Twitter and continue the conversation there. But from today, big businesses will be fined if they're busted hitting customers with excessive credit card charges. Ross Greenwood told us about this earlier this week. People are being encouraged to dob in companies who aren't doing the right thing. Now, remember, this is big businesses first. I think small businesses, Ben, have another year. Some of them have charged 17% on purchases, 17%.
This is hopefully the end of one of the greatest rorts that's been going on in Australia, in that people are lured in at the promise of a cheap flight, and then you book, and then you discover, then you get your bill and go, hang on a moment, I thought it was going to be $110, and there's now this extra charge that's loaded on. So it is the end of that great rort, but just beware. Big businesses will find a way, and I notice in the small print of these changes, they're not changing. They're not going to stop people from adding on a new booking fee. So they'll stop you from hitting you on the more expensive credit card fee. Yeah. But you might say, all right, well, we're going to hit you on a booking fee, or we're going to hit you on a loading fee, or whatever. But at least they're doing something about it, and there's a $1.1 million fine for people who step outside of the rules. So I think it's a good thing.
Shelley?
I'm a cash girl.
Are you?
Yeah,
Old school.
I am
Cash is king.
I am so old school. And the only time I really use my credit card is for online, and then it was flights. And flights is where I'm like, hang on, that flight actually just doubled in price because there's a baggage fee and this, that, and the other. And that's when I've only really noticed it. I didn't know that other companies were doing it. But
what about when you go to get cash out at an ATM that isn't your bank's?
$2.50.
$2.90 the other day.
What? What bank are you going at?
Well, Westpac.
Well, you've got to be a Westpac person.
Hey, look,
I walk that extra 500 metres and go to my bank.
Well, I do too, but this was a case where I couldn't.
Tight-ass Shelley
No.
I keep cash under the bed, so I don't know what you're all going
that's
about.
not
When it all comes crashing down, we go to Ben's
I think
house.
on the credit card thing too, people have been lured in because of the points that you get
reward
there.
system.
So that's the thing. So people, I want to put it on the credit card because of the points, but then you get the credit card.
Let's just quickly move on to this, because Senator's in session, and we spoke to him just last week. He was excited about Senate school, so excited that he wore himself out. Senator Derryn Hinch nodded off at his first day in Parliament, and really, who can blame him? The broadcaster was photographed asleep during the Gov and the Generals, the GG's 40-minute address.
You don't speak for 40 minutes, here's the tip.
Yeah, and also start with a joke, go to a music act or something.
Bit of interpretive dance.
Now, he's pushing to lift, and rightly so, I think, it's a bit outdated, the lift to ban photographers snapping pictures on senators. So
They
that
are good,
happened.
though.
And careful what you wish for here, Shelley.
It's called karma. Look, I don't think there's any excuse for falling asleep in the Senate. I am actually
his first week on the
furious.
job.
It's the first day in the job. You know what? Maybe he had a bit of nerves and couldn't sleep the night before. Somehow I doubt it. I think that this is not acceptable and he needs to bloody step up.
Mate, that whole building, I've worked in Parliament House, Canberra, that whole building sends you to sleep. I'm telling you. I used to get to a point where I'd be like, oh gosh, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I feel like I need to sleep. There's something about the air in that building.
They need to like pump oxygen in like they do at casinos.
Yeah, I think so. More than oxygen, I think, to keep people awake in Canberra. And then, did anyone watch the first day of Parliament, the ceremonial stuff? It is the biggest load of rubbish you've ever heard in your life.
Just get on with
I
it.
don't blame him for falling asleep at all. Shame, shame, shame.
Shame.
Oh, how about nap? Maybe it's just a power nap. I mean, it's just they weren't doing any work, you know. They were just, it was just a speech. He wasn't voting.
We've all done it, haven't we? Fallen asleep at
how embarrassing.
University lectures.
Embarrassing.
I did it in school once.
Yeah. Every time I go to the movies.
Hey, let us know where you... Why are you going to go
It's shocking.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I know. Don't
Having
don't
a facial and I woke myself up snoring.
How embarrassing is that?
It's
dribbling.
Mate, on an aeroplane, having a nightmare on an aeroplane and waking myself up like this and then hitting people around me and saying, I'm sorry. It's a little bit embarrassing.
Well, look, grab the no-dos and go onto Facebook and let us know where you've fallen asleep
Thank you
inappropriately.
both.
Thank you both for joining us.
Cheers.
Just ahead for you on Today Extra, Trump takedown